Recently on this channel, I've made some videos where I gave some not so positive evaluations of a handful of current NBA rebuilds, most notably the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Atlanta Hawks. And as a result, a lot of you guys got a bit upset with me that I am being way too negative. I prefer to call it realistic, but to each their own. However, today's video is going to be much more positive. I'm going to talk about a team that, in my opinion, has the best rebuild going in the NBA right now, the Memphis Grizzlies. Welcome back everybody, my name is Tucker, and in this video I'm going to be explaining why the Memphis Grizzlies are the best rebuild in the NBA right now. And this is going to be split up into 4 different sections. First, I'm going to explain why I picked the Grizzlies rebuild over a handful of other young teams in the NBA, and then I'll go into the rebuild itself and why it looks so promising for the future of the Grizzlies, split up into 3 different parts, each focusing on a different aspect of the rebuild. Now, when I revealed the Grizzlies as the topic of today's video, many of you were probably confused. Why wouldn't teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are having more team success this season, or the Pelicans, who arguably have more young talent and are only a few wins behind the Grizzlies in the standings this season, and both of which have a ton of future assets as well, be considered the best rebuilds in the NBA right now? Well, on the surface, that seems like a really good argument. The Thunder have a great mix of a future all-star like gilgeous-alexander, along with veterans and trade pieces like Steven Adams, Chris Paul, and Danilo Gallinari, plus a number of extra future first-round picks as well. And I really like the future of the Thunder right now, so much so that they got their own video a few months ago. And of course, the Pelicans have arguably the most young talent in the league right now, headlined by Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, along with a number of extra future first-round picks as well, and I love their future too. However, this is what separates the Grizzlies from those two teams for me: the difficulty of the rebuild to this point. Notice that to this point in the video, I never mentioned that I like the Grizzlies' future better than every other team in the league right now, though I do think they have an extremely bright one, but rather that I like how they have rebuilt their team to this point. Here's what I mean. The Thunder traded away 2 superstars in Paul George and Russell Westbrook to get the bulk of their assets for their rebuild, a decision that they likely wouldn't have made if they weren't forced into it, with George's desire to go to the Clippers and play with Kawhi, and the Clippers' desire to give up a ton of assets for him. In New Orleans, it's a similar story, with the Anthony Davis trade laying the foundation for a great future, and the lottery luck of landing Zion Williamson being the cherry on top of the rebuild sundae. However, there were no such superstar trades in Memphis. They built a team with a great future and a solid present as well, with the chance to make the postseason with a rookie and a second-year player leading the way, without the luxury of trading away a superstar. Now, they had assets to trade, sure, but they weren't nearly as sought after around the league as the trio of George, Westbrook, and Davis, and they had a little young talent to begin with when they began the rebuild as well, making it, in my opinion, more impressive than either rebuild in Oklahoma City or New Orleans. Going back once again to that Hawks video that I mentioned in the intro, I got some criticism for my takes on John Collins in that video. Not only for saying that he isn't the second star that Atlanta needs, but also for saying that Jaren Jackson Jr. does qualify as the second star in Memphis. And that 2-star dynamic is critical to a successful, high-caliber NBA rebuild. You can have one great player and some nice pieces around him, but that really won't get you far in the very talented modern NBA. You need 2 true stars plus the possibility to obtain a third and the ability to put complementary pieces around your star players to be a great rebuild in my eyes. And to me, Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. are absolutely in that star category. Morant is already a really good NBA guard with great athleticism, awesome passing vision, a developing scoring skill set, and the kind of impact that drives winning. Here's a list of guards in the three-point era that averaged 30 minutes per game as a rookie and led their team to the playoffs at 21 years old or younger. Donovan Mitchell, who had Rudy Gobert as the Defensive Player of the Year that season, Brandon Jennings, who had Andrew Bogut, who made third-team All-NBA in the same season, Stephon Marbury, who had Kevin Garnett as an All-Star, and Derrick Rose. And along with Morant, Rose is the only other player to do that without an All-Star or All-NBA or award-winning teammate if Morant gets the Grizzlies to the playoffs this season. Now, Morant certainly has issues. The three-point percentage and volume is encouraging, but needs to improve over the years, and the turnovers definitely need to go down, but at a position that is traditionally really difficult to transition to at the NBA level, he is a future all-star / all-NBA caliber player in the making, in my opinion. As for Jaren Jackson Jr., I have always been a fan. Listen to what I said about him in my 2018 mock draft from a few years ago. He's the most complete big man in this draft class and has the mobility and fluidity to be an impact player on both ends of the floor. At 6'11" with a 7'4" wingspan, Jackson shot nearly 40% from 3 on over 2.5 attempts per game in his one season in college, while also showing great rim protection ability with a 3 blocks per game average. And to me, Jackson has followed through on that potential through almost 2 seasons now in the NBA. He's a really intriguing defender that hasn't quite figured it all out yet, with a very high foul average for a player playing less than 30 minutes per game, but his ability to move his feet on the perimeter on switches while also being a rim protector is nearly perfect for the modern NBA as a frontcourt player. Offensively, the name of the game for Jackson is once again versatility. He isn't going to wow you with post moves or playmaking, but he's a great shooter for his position in both percentage and volume, and his flash and ability to get to the rim off of closeouts as well. Now, he certainly has flaws as well. He needs to be much better on the glass, and I talked about the foul difficulties, plus he needs to expand his offensive game a little bit, but the versatility and potential is all there. Here's a list of NBA players to average 2.5 made threes and 1.5 blocks per game at 21 years old or younger. Jaren Jackson Jr. this season, end of list. If you take away the 21 years old or younger part, that list expands to 2 players, with Kevin Durant in the 2017-18 season joining Jaren Jackson Jr. So that's why I believe in this duo in Memphis so much. They're a nice fit together, with Morant being ball dominant and Jackson Jr. being a great complement to that, with the potential to be a great combination defensively as well, and neither of them are 21 years old yet. To me, once these guys hit their prime, if you put another scorer with them and some nice complementary options on the floor, you're winning 50 games even in a tough Western Conference, making them a great foundation to build around. Now, even with having the talent of those 2 stars, that isn't enough on its own to make a great rebuild, as evidenced by my Timberwolves video that I referenced in the intro, as they have Karl-Anthony Towns and D'Angelo Russell, but lack the flexibility to build around them moving forward, with both of them being on max contracts at the moment. However, that flexibility is another area in which this Grizzlies rebuild shines. Having both Jackson Jr. and Morant on rookie contracts for the next few seasons certainly helps, but they made a number of nice moves to position themselves to be one of the true teams of the future in the NBA over the last few seasons. When you look at their payroll, they have $113 million committed to next season, but the only free agents on the roster for next year are Josh Jackson and De'Anthony Melton, 2 players who, if they were to leave, wouldn't negatively impact the roster all that much next season, although I'd imagine they'd like to at least keep Melton next year. And as you look towards the following season, you see the true value of how the payroll is currently set up in Memphis. They have a number of nice complementary options should they choose to keep them, such as Justice Winslow, Jonas Valanciunas, Kyle Anderson, and Tyus Jones, that all also double as trade pieces with movable salaries should they decide to go in that direction, with Winslow holding a team option for the summer of 2021 should they decide they need to open up more cap space that off season. But the positives don't end there, as that list of complementary pieces doesn't include the 24-year-old Dylan Brooks, locked up on a fair contract through 2023, and rookie draft steal Brandon Clark, who makes less than $10 million total over the next 3 years of his deal. And what all that means is that the Grizzlies can go in literally any direction they wanted to, and that flexibility is a great tool to have. In the unlikely scenario that they have the opportunity to sign a max contract free agent in the stacked class of 2021, they'd have the cap space to do that. If a star player becomes unhappy and requests a trade, they have the assets and salaries to make an intriguing offer. If the Morant, Jackson, Clark, Brooks combination looks like it can be a championship core on its own, they have the space to bring back their own complementary pieces that are already on the roster, or bring in different ones in subsequent free agency classes, before then signing the young guys to rookie extensions a few years from now. Now, there is one significant flaw in this that is in sharp contrast to those Oklahoma City and New Orleans rebuilds I mentioned earlier, and that is the draft assets. They do have a late 2020 first-round pick from Utah and a lightly protected 2024 Golden State Warriors first-round pick that could become more valuable the closer it gets, depending on how long the Warriors can sustain their current success. But they do not have control over their own selection this season as a result of a trade from all the way back in 2015. Now, it isn't likely to be a huge game changer in a 2020 draft class that doesn't look to be all that strong, but it would be nice to have that asset in a potential trade down the road. But even with that said, when you consider the salaries and assets that Memphis has to work with, they're in a great position from a flexibility standpoint moving forward. And then the last part of this rebuild that is a huge positive that I think often goes overlooked is the confidence that I have in the front office to continue to make the right moves. Over the last few years, there have been very few, if any, missteps to building this current core, and it's very clear that they have a goal in mind, they have a plan that they're moving forward with, and barring any injuries to their core of players, they're going to have a very, very competent team over the next few years. From the Marc Gasol and Mike Conley trades to the drafting of John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Brandon Clark, and others, this is a front office that clearly knows what they're doing. And having smart people in charge that you believe in and a coach that appears to have the players on his side is a great thing and the last piece of the puzzle that was missing for this rebuild that is now fully in place in Memphis. And yeah, there you have it. That is going to be the end of today's video, and I thank you all very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.